everyone, welcome or welcome back to my channel. Today's a fun little video that kind of came to me about halfway through bookmas to do, and that was when I got my Spotify Wrapped. It wasn't really halfway through. It was probably halfway through when I was filming the videos, but the first week of December, Spotify sent out your Spotify Wrapped, and I was like, well, you know, it'd be fun if I do book recommendations based on my 5 top songs for the year. So first we'll go over what those 5 songs are, which if anybody has paid attention on this channel should not be surprised by at least the artist. And then I will go through, I did try to do like 3 recommendations, whether it be like series or a specific book for each song. And these again are like my thoughts on it and how I interpret the songs and how I interpret the books. So it may be a little bit different than maybe some of your thoughts on that, but I will try to explain my reasoning without spoiling the books. So I was not shocked at all that my #1 artist for the year was Taylor Swift, that my #1 album for the year was The Tortured Poets Department. I have been listening to that nonstop since it came out. I don't even listen to much of her other stuff. I do every once in a while go back and just put all of the Taylor's versions that I have on a playlist. I have every album that she's re-released or released since owning her music on a playlist, and I will put that on every once in a while. But for the most part, like, all I've wanted to listen to this year is Tortured Poets. And that was like 30-some songs if you count the double album. So it's been a lot of songs. The top 5 didn't surprise me, the order a little bit, but we'll go through them. Number 5 is Guilty as Sin. Number 4 was Fortnite. 3 was Who's Afraid of Little Old Me. 2 was I Can Do It With a Broken Heart. And number 1 was But Daddy, I Love Him. That surprised me, but then again, maybe not. I am surprised that The Smallest Man That Ever Lived was not on there, but I think that's one that I just started listening to more recently, so maybe like the previous, listening to on repeat a lot recently, I should say, because I have been listening to it, but some of these other songs are ones that like they'll play and I'll just replay it, so that's probably how they got to where they are. And I think Fortnite got to where it is because it's the first song on the album, so a lot of times when I started, if it's not on shuffle, that's the song it starts with. Still do love that song though. I still do love Post Malone, who made it onto my top 5 artists of 2024, and I think that's only because, I know that's only because he's on that song. So that just tells you how much I listen to that album. Florence and the Machine also. So we're gonna start with number 1 just because those are the books that I pulled off the shelf first. So the first, for Daddy I Love Him, what I think is this girl picking a person that maybe her parents don't approve of or don't agree with, or maybe isn't the best choice for her, but she just doesn't really care. And by the end, she's like, yeah, he's either accepted it or like, it is what it is. I don't care what you think. You're not, like, I'm not inviting you to the wedding, that whole kind of thing. That's just where my mind went with it. So for these, I picked which one I think is pretty dang obvious. So These Violent Delights duology. This is a Romeo and Juliet reimagining. So clearly her father is not going to be a fan of the love interest and never really becomes a fan of the love interest in this, but her friends and everything start to accept it towards the end and understand it towards the end. So that is why these 2, I think, speak to that song, at least how my mind interprets that song. The next one, and this one actually, no, I'm gonna keep this one for last because I think that one is the most accurate. The next one I picked was the Twisted series, most specifically 1, 2, and 4. 3 is just like a best friend's brother, little sister's best friend. But this one was definitely like, dad did not approve, still never approved, mafia, not great for her, but still loved her a lot, and she was really happy with him towards the end. This was the crown didn't approve, so therefore her family didn't approve, but again, towards the end, things happened and acceptance was had. And this one doesn't fit as well as maybe the first 2 do, but because of what Christian does, and like, he may not be the best choice for her just because he's like involved in some underground darker things, and she's this like public figure that needs to keep her like image clean and everything. There's a little bit of disapproval there, I think, at the first part, but the Twisted series in general, I think, is just like, from what I read this year, a good example of But Daddy I Love Him and I don't care. So that's those. And then the final book, which I think speaks to it, the song the most, because by the end of this book, Daddy did kind of, I think, start to like him. I think he was starting to accept him. A book that I will not shut up about, and that is A Monsoon Rising by Faye Guanzon. Enemies to lovers, but her dad loves her so much, and he's starting to see what's going on, and maybe more even so than she does, that he's starting to maybe warm up to Alaric. We'll see. I don't know. It was still kind of up in the air towards the end, but he was giving me vibes that maybe he'll accept it one day. So those are the 3 that I think fit, that I read this year, that I think fit the song the most, at least how I interpret it. Okay, so the next song was I Could Do It With a Broken Heart, which I hope if you're a Taylor Swift fan, you know this song by now, but it talks about how depressed this girl is, but she still has to put on a brave face every day and be able to go out and pretend that she's fine and deal with life. So it's basically wearing a really good poker face, in my opinion. So, but also being very depressed and struggling on the downside. One that I read recently, I think, is All Roads Lead Here, that kind of embodies this. And Aurora moves to this town because she just had a really bad breakup and has lost more than just that relationship. And she's trying to pretend like everything's okay and start over. And she doesn't want these people that she's living with to know what the real reason was for her moving there and how much she's really been screwed over and everything. So she has to kind of act like she's just trying to restart after just a bad breakup, but she has lost so much more and is trying to find herself and trying to find love and find friendship again. And I think that this, maybe not the best example of that, but I think that it truly does show that you could be struggling internally with even who to trust and everything, and how much you want to expose about what you're dealing with to those around you when you're trying to just make everybody else happy. Another one I think that maybe embodies that a little bit is The Right Move, and that is mainly Indy, maybe a little bit of Ryan too, just because he's so unhappy with being alone, but he doesn't trust anybody enough to open up because he's been burned in the past because of his fame and his money and everything. So he is dealing with that internally and maybe doesn't want to open up about it as much. And then Indy obviously dealt with her bad breakup as well, and trying to put on a brave face and act like everything's fine in front of her friends because her friends were his friends and they had to kind of pick a side, and she's trying to be like, it's fine, I'm okay, you guys go do that, it's whatever, but in the side she's really hurting. So this was another one that came to mind for that song. And then one that I think, if you've read the book, you understand, and that is Binding 13 by Chloe Walsh, and that is basically Joey and Shannon. They're all of the Lynch children. They're trying to go out and pretend like everything's fine when everything is actually falling apart at home, and they're all struggling to just live every day, but they don't want people to know what's going on because they don't want that to affect their lives and them to be separated or anything. So these children are some of the strongest characters I have read in a book this year, and that is because they go out there every day with a brave face and try to just maintain a semblance of normal so that people don't question their home life and possibly tear them apart from each other when they've already lost so much. So I picked this one just because I think it's the most prevalent in this one and because the big event is first introduced at the end of this book, but I think they all fit this song choice very well. I think even Gibbsy, to an extent, meets that prompt when you find out more about his background and why he tries to act like such a jokester and happy-go-lucky guy all the time. I think he fits that pretty well. The next song is Who's Afraid of Little Old Me? And again, I think this one's pretty self-explanatory. There's a little bit of a witchy vibe to this too, and it's basically about a strong, powerful woman who has been oppressed her entire life and hasn't really been allowed to be herself because people have tried to tame her, and she's just a strong badass woman, and the whole thing is who's afraid of little old me? You should be. And I think this was the easiest one to pick 3 books for. And the first is Shatter Me by Tahar Mafi, and Juliet embodies this so much, and I think the witchy aspect to it too, because she does have a power. She's not a witch, but she has a power. She hates that it's a destructive power, but eventually grows to accept that and accept her strength and accept her badassery, and people should be afraid of her. But she's also this meek, not as strong female character, I want to say at the beginning. She grows into her strength, and I think that she embodies that song very well. Another one who's just a badass from the start, and everyone should be afraid of this girl, Selena Sardouthian / if you read it. But this girl is a 16-year-old assassin when we first meet her in The Assassin's Blade, and she's a badass. She can just she can do whatever, and people are afraid of her, and they should be, because she acts first and asks questions later. So I love this character. I do want to reread this series. I read it and finished it up last year. I do have the original cover for just Throne of Glass. The rest of them I have the newer ones, but I kind of just love this cover. I don't want to get rid of it. So, and I think that shows her in every aspect of that song. So if you've read Throne of Glass, I think you probably would agree with me that this embodies that song. And another one of Quarter Silver Flames by Sarah J. Maas. Now listen to me here. I know not a lot of people do not like Nesta. I loved Nesta. This is my favorite book in the series. But girlfriend is scary in this book. And she just turns into more of a badass. And I feel like she was like oppressed from a young age. And like, yeah, she comes off as like a straight up jerk. And I don't want to use the other word because I don't like that word. But she comes off not very nice in the first few books, but it is because she's dealing with so much and she just doesn't know how to like convey those emotions, I think. That's how I took it. But the way that she develops and like grows into and like what she grows into is like, yes, I am terrified of Nesta by this book. So, but again, she has like that heart of gold and she really just wants to be a better version of herself, but at the same time has had so many people like knock her down along the way. So, I know not everyone's a fan of her, but I really like Nesta. I love this book. Another one I want to reread. This was a chonker of a book, but I loved this. This was the only one we got with this character, like this couple. So that's why I think it's okay that it's that big. Next song is Fortnight. And this one was difficult because I'm like, how many books did I read about like somebody basically having an affair and wanting to be with this other person? I don't read books like that. So what I focused on was like relationships that were maybe messy and another person was involved. But at the same time, like the line that I focused on the most was I love you, it's ruining my life. Because I say that consistently throughout it. And like basically how they just like need each other even though they don't want to. Because I know it's not right. So the first one I chose for that was Heartless Hunter because honestly, their relationship is true enemies to lovers and like they love each other and it is ruining the other person's life because she's trying to fight against him and everything he stands for, being a witch hunter and saving her friends, but she loves him. So that one I think was a bit of a stretch, but at the same time, like it was the truest enemies to lovers I could think of that fit this that I hadn't already used. And that line I think embodies the relationship in this the most. The Powerless series, I did not read Powerless this year, but I did read Reckless, which I think actually embodies this more, but I just picked up the first book in the series. And again, it's the I love you, you're ruining my life, but like I'm with this person, but I really want to be with you, and I just want to like, I want him to go away. Like the lyric is more violent than that, but I'm not going to say it. But the whole like, I want to be with somebody else, but you're with them, and I'm with this person, and we just can't be together, but I still get to see you in like secret and everything, and we have this relationship in secret and all of that. So I think Powerless really embodies that. I also think that, and to an extent, the beginning of Red Queen did, that kind of separated a little bit from this, but because they're kind of, this was loosely based off of that. The first book in Red Queen I think has that as well, but this series in general, especially with how the second book ended, I think embodies that whole like, I love you, it's ruining my life, I want to be with you, I want him to just, so if you know, you know. And then another series that is the whole behind closed doors, more feelings are there, and they don't want everybody else to really know, but everybody does know for these two. And they are kind of ruining each other's lives by how much they care about each other, because it's not the greatest relationship, it is toxic. And they just get like very jealous and very argumentative when the other is with somebody else. Magnolia Parks, specifically Magnolia Parks and Magnolia Parks Long Way Home. Into the Dark I could say is maybe a little bit different, but specifically this one and the second one, in Magnolia and BJ's point of view, I think that is the closest you're going to get to Fortnite that I've read. Because obviously they love each other, they're kind of screwing each other over constantly, so they are semi-ruining each other's lives, and because they're dating with other people, there's that like jealousy factor there, but then behind closed doors, like they're still maybe a little closer than they should be when they're seeing other people. So that's probably the closest one you'll get on that song from what I have on my shelves. Okay, and this one is going to be, I don't want to say too spoilery, but because of the song, it may give away a little bit. So if you don't want to know what I relate to Guilty as Sin, I'll explain what I think about the song. And then if you don't want to hear books that I think relate to that, because it may be a slight spoiler, you can end the video. But Guilty as Sin to me is, you see this person and in your mind you're like, I feel like we've been more. Why do I feel like that I'm so comfortable around you, and that we've made these promises to each other, and that we've never even kissed or touched, but I feel like we have, and there's just like instant connection, and you don't know why. That's just how I feel about it, and that's how I feel when I relate it to a book, when I'm trying to think of like what kind of a book to relate it to. So if you don't want to know what books I feel like relate to this song because it's somebody that maybe doesn't remember why they like a person as much as they do or feel so connected to a person, skip until you see me maybe like not holding books up anymore. Our Kingdom of the Wicked trilogy, because you do kind of find out in this one a little bit, but Amelia doesn't really know why she's so strongly connected to Wrath and why she trusts him as much as she does and why she's like okay with working with him when she doesn't really know him and he's a demon prince and she shouldn't trust him. I'll just put that one down. Similar feelings in Nightbane. Isla doesn't understand why she likes Grimm so much and why she keeps thinking that something else is like not there in her mind whenever he's involved and that he's keeping something from her. So again, like she doesn't understand why she feels this connection to him until things happen in this book and then she finds out why. And the last one, When the Moon Hatched. Again, if you've read this book, you know why, but there's just like this same kind of a feeling. These all have the same kind of issue thing in them. So they have a connection, they're attracted to each other, they're physically attracted to each other, like she trusts him for the most part. And it's feelings that like you can't easily explain. So that one was a hard one because it could end up semi-spoiling the book, but that's just what that song is. So that's why I gave you the warning. That one was the easiest one for me to pick for once I kind of figured out what I felt about the song and how I would relate it to a book. But again, it's one that could kind of give away a little bit. So, all right. So if you've made it this far, now let me know what your #1 Spotify Wrapped song was, or your #1 Apple, whatever you listen to, your favorite song for the year. If you don't use a streaming site that tells you what the song you listen to the most was, what was your favorite song this year? And maybe a book that you think relates to it. So give me some comments down below with that, and maybe I'll add a book to my TBR if I like the song and I like what the book sounds like. So thank you so much for watching if you've made it this far, and I hope to see you all tomorrow for the last day of Bookmas, which is day 24. And happy holidays to those that you celebrate, if I did not say that at the end of the last video, because I'm not sure that I did. But I hope you all have a safe and wonderful holiday, New Year's, and I will see you all January 1st after tomorrow.